Hello and welcome to another episode of the League One Lowdown here on the Net Network. I'm Callum, and as always, joined by Sam. Sam, one of us probably a bit more happier given the past few days events on the pitch. But how are you doing?
Oh, all good, thank you, my friend. All good.
Yeah, I wish I could say the same. It's been an interesting few days in my life with football and car crashes and whatnot, but I'm sure we'll touch on that another time. We'll get to our predictions and how we've been doing in predictions. We've done all right, I think. It's kind of a mixed bag again.
Mm.
But first of all, Sam, we've got a question for the viewers.
Yeah, so our question of the day is which club do you support and why? So is it a family reason? Is it a work reason? Obviously, Callum's a Lincoln City fan. I'll let him explain why he supports Lincoln City.
So I was originally raised, and block your ears for this one, a Man United fan. My family all supported them. I think it started with my gramps, who supported Man United in like the 50s when Manchester City were actually apparently the team to support in the playgrounds. So he supported Man United to annoy them all. Apparently, I can't believe. Yeah, well, it's just one of them. And then that carried it down his side of the family. I had the choice to become a Man United or a Leicester fan. Between my mum and my dad, and I think my mum won that argument. But there are pictures of me in Leicester City shirts as a child. Obviously, I supported my local non-league side as well, which are Bristol Rovers in the step 5 of non-league, so they're not exactly great. But then I moved to Lincoln for university, and obviously getting to know the club through work at uni, you just kind of develop a bit of a soft spot for them. So now, whenever I go to work and Lincoln lose, it's a really bad shift, and I enjoy it a lot more when they win, which we'll touch on, I'm sure.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, so
What about
I'm
you with
obviously
Orient
an
then?
Orient. I'm obviously an Orient fan. My first game was in 2005. My dad took me, and I distinctly remember they lost their first one 3-2, and then won the next one I went to 3-2.
Oh,
And then from 2006 to 2000, I'm going to say 17, I went with my uncle because my dad was a West Ham fan at the time.
oh dear.
We've converted him, so it's not a problem now. And now we go with him and have been since 2017 now.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's one of them. Like, I feel like everyone's so tribal, and you don't often talk about people changing football clubs. But I'll admit I've changed. I've gone through phases of supporting Burton Albion because they were my local side. When we used to get tickets through school to go and watch Derby
Mm-hmm.
County and stuff like that, you support them as well. So as I think I've supported loads of teams, in and around my area. But yeah, it kind of gives you a sense as to where I've been for most of my life. But yeah, no, a Lincoln fan through and through. We'll move on to our predictions, which I mean, I would have preferred it if we just did Saturdays because I did all right on Saturday. You've clawed it back though with last night's predictions, Sam.
Yeah, so over the 2 match days, on the Saturday I got 4 points, so one correct score and one outcome, which is terrible. On Tuesday I got 7 correct outcomes, which is 7 points.
Really good, yeah.
On Saturday, Callum, you got 6 points, so one correct score and 3 correct outcomes. And then on Tuesday, you got 5 correct outcomes. Between us, we actually got 8 correct outcomes out of 12 matches last night, which I think is pretty good going.
It's respectable. I still wouldn't trust us for your hackers, but
Oh, no.
definitely not.
So in total, I'm on 147 points. Callum's still got a 13-point lead on 160. If you're new around here, because I know we've had an influx of new people, welcome. If I lose, I have to buy a Lincoln City shirt and wear it for the season review. And if Callum loses, he has to buy a Leyton Orient shirt and wear that for the season review. And at the end of the season,
Yeah.
we will give it away to one lucky person.
Beautiful stuff. So we'll start with last night's football. A lot of different storylines elsewhere. I kind of want to start with the one story that shook my eye. We'll get onto the actual action, but Wigan Athletic. This thing kind of, I mean, it was to be expected considering he wasn't in the squad, but their match last night where they lost 1-0 at Peterborough, fairly boring game. Obviously, Peterborough now got 2 clean sheets and 3, which is
Yep.
very weird for them. Obviously, ignore the 5 goals they conceded to Lincoln in the middle of all of that, but yeah. And then they announced the sale of Tello Asgard to Luton 6 minutes after the full-time whistle. That feels very weird.
Yeah, it's been an extremely weird window for Wigan. Like so in the summer they lost Charlie Hughes, who arguably was one of their better, or was their best centre half. They had an extremely weird summer of buying younger players to try and develop, and now they've lost arguably one of the best attacking midfielders in League One, bar anyone from Birmingham, because they are the best player in the league. In Taylor Asgard, I mean, this rumoured £3.7 million. If Luton
take it,
it's a proper good deal for Luton. I think he's worth a lot more than, and will develop into a player more than that. At 22 years old, as well, plenty of time to develop. 163 games he played for Wigan Athletic, and they've got 4 days to replace him now. 8 goals this season. 8 goals, yeah.
I guess maybe they're thinking that they've got a 9-point gapper on, 9-point buffer on the teams in the relegation zone, so maybe they're kind of just edging their bets. But then you say £3.7 million would probably get more than that. I don't doubt they could, but then also you look at the fact that a lot of teams have released their accounts recently, and they're losing about 3 million. So that could be, Wigan could make a profit this year because they've developed and sold one player. So
yes.
So yeah. But anyway, elsewhere, I just wanted to bring that up because I just thought it was a really weird timing. It kind of, I just raised my eyebrows a little bit. Crawley and Burton picking up wins. Burton Albion with that dramatic late winner against Reading. That game certainly very interesting, and also a win for Crawley as well. Do we think the Great Escape's on for them? For both of them, maybe?
I don't think so for Crawley. I don't think, while they had a couple of days where they signed, I think 3, they signed Matthew Cox on loan from Brentford. They got Kamari Doyle, who was on loan at Exeter last season, and they got one other whose name is evading me. But Burton got John Daddy Bod Varson in just around middle of December, and the man is proving an absolute steal on a free transfer. They've won their last 3. They've lost only 1 of their last 7 now, and they are now only 3 points behind Northampton Town. The escape of Burton needs to be studied every year. But this is the 3rd year in a row that they've been around bottom, if not bottom, at Christmas, and they look like they're going to stay up. This happened. Dino Mamria did it once. Patterson did it last year. And now we've got Gary Bowyer doing exactly the same thing. It may be that some of their players are now just gelling together. That could well be happening. We know Gary Bowyer has a reputation of getting every sort of bit quality out their players. Maybe his style just suits the players they've got a bit more. They've gone to a different system with 2 up top. Burrell is showing why they bought him. He scored, I think, 30 to 40 goals for Cove Rangers last year in Scotland, and has now got 5 goals for the season. So they've now got 2 strikers that are scoring goals, which obviously massively helps. Crawley have won 1 of their last 5, 2 draws and 2 defeats in there. They're still only 3 points off. Shrewsbury are now 7 points off, which the thing with Shrewsbury, they've still got Gareth Ainsworth, so you don't.
It does feel like it's like their trump card, isn't it? Their joker that they've got. But
I think the team you've got to worry for is Northampton. I think 1 win in their last 5. They've not really recruited that well in January. They've signed, I think it's only Liam Shaw so far in the door. I may have missed one loanee off there. They don't look like they can score goals. Only 25 goals scored, which is the 2nd lowest in the league, behind Stevenage, who have now got 23. But the difference between them and Stevenage is obviously Stevenage have only conceded 24 goals and Northampton have conceded 43. And then you've got Bristol Rovers as well, who are probably not out of danger. Exeter, who we'll touch on in a minute. And then obviously Posh, who we believe will get away from danger.
I say Liam Shaw had a hell of a night last night, scoring in his own goal, and then in scoring an own goal and an actual goal for Northampton Town. What a night it was for him. So yeah, Burton, I like them. Bristol Rovers, I've heard a lot of people worrying about them as well, thinking that they're on a bit of a downward curl. That they've lost 2 and won 2 in their last 4. Elsewhere, Bolton looking. You see this all the time. Just got rid of a manager, and now beat Huddersfield Town and beat Northampton yesterday. Moving on from now, they've got positive goal difference, which I suppose is always helpful, but their goal difference is shocking compared to all the teams around them. But Bolton, they need to. It depends who they get in and what manager they get in, because I don't know if they can, go all the way to the end of the season with the temporary manager. But they're doing all right, Bolton.
Yeah, it's quite convenient that I put a clip on our Twitter about Ian Everett saying, changing me won't change anything. It's all about the players, and the same players, same mentality, same attributes. And he's gone. They've got to beat Huddersfield away, who are unbeaten. I think it was in 16. So that's a bloody impressive result. And then they've gone to beat Northampton, which, while they're poor, you never know what Northampton team you're going to get. They obviously got a point, I believe, against Birmingham earlier in the year as well. So you don't know what Northampton's going to get. You're going to get. He's kept the same shape in terms of it's a 3-5-2 or whatever you want to call it nowadays. The main difference is they've not got Dean Charles, obviously, but they're playing Adi Boijo. And then the difference is Aaron Collins has now got 2-2 as well. A player I really highly rate. It just hasn't clicked properly yet at Bolton. But I firmly believe on his day he's one of the best attacking players in League One. It's just about getting the best out of. If you get the best out of every single one of them Bolton players, they're top 4. That's the way I see it. And I still believe what the level on points of Orient, who occupy the last playoff place. There's no way I still don't think that Bolton don't finish in the playoffs. I think the quality in their squad's too high. Maybe they need one more attacking player in the market, but you've still got 6 days to get that.
And then you look towards the top of the league. We all were thinking, it's a battling now that Birmingham are off, and then it was like it was Wycombe, Wrexham, and Huddersfield to battle it out. But all of a sudden, Wrexham without a win in 3, Huddersfield without a win in 3, they're kind of now coming towards, towards the mid pack, as we call it, or the lower playoff teams, I guess is the nicer way of calling it. And Wycombe, who everyone were thinking were going to just drop off, they're now, they've played 2 games more than Birmingham, but they're 2 points beyond Birmingham and comfortable in second place.
Yeah, I think we all expected kind of the top 3, didn't we? Just to kind of run away along with Huddersfield. But like you say, 1 win in 5 for Huddersfield, 1 win in 5 for Wrexham. Wycombe obviously got that dramatic winner last night. I think it was the 95th minute. They scored Lubala. Won Wycombe the game. Obviously, they're still without a manager, a Wycombe Wanderers. Birmingham, I've spoken with a couple of Birmingham fans on Twitter today, and we had a discussion about could they beat Wolves' 103 points. So they'd need, 44 points from 20 games.
That's easy for them. It's 2.4 points a game, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. So, and I had a look at where Wolves were. Wolves had 52 points at 28 games, and Wolves got 103. So it's not out of the question that Birmingham, and they signed Kieran Dowell this week, who, again, is probably one of the best creative players now in League One, while he's not match fit. Yeah, they should. I think we all envy them, don't we? The quality in their squad. Yeah. We all wish to have squads like theirs. Wycombe need a manager. I think that you can't go with an interim until the end of the season.
No.
Wrexham are just going for a sticky patch. They haven't had theirs yet. They have been in the market for a striker. There was a rumour today from somebody that they're looking at Sam Smith from Reading. And they also made a bid for another striker who I can't remember, but he was a championship striker. Off the top of my head.
Interesting.
And then obviously Huddersfield.
Yeah, they're just Huddersfield. It's like as soon as Huddersfield are really confusing, right? Because they signed Joe Taylor and Dion Charles, and then roughly since then they beat Wycombe 1-0, drew 2-2 at Blackpool, and they've not scored in either of the games since. Okay, granted, Bolton and Birmingham, who are 2 decent sides, but you brought 2 strikers in who, they might take time to gel, but for the money you've paid, you expect a return, and
100%.
They're not getting that.
Yeah, this is the second sort of sticky spell they've had now as well, isn't it, Huddersfield? So that inconsistency will probably end up costing them a chance at going for the top 2. So I think they're only 4 points now inside the playoffs, but they have played a game less than Bolton. I still believe they'll probably finish top 6, but I think they're probably now looking at a playoff finish now. They're 10 points off second place. So
I'll let you have your chance to gloat then.
oh
Go on.
yes,
6-2. Go on.
6. The first time Leyton Orient have scored 6 in a league game since 24th of April 1999. That is, and the first time they scored 6 in an away game at Exeter since 1954.
It's a really specific stat in it. That'll get you a top
Yes.
answer on Pointless, wouldn't it?
So Orient are top of the form table in the last 8. Watching Exeter last night. I'll try and concentrate on Exeter a bit more because we've spoken about Orient quite a lot recently, but I will have my part on that. Exeter had one fit centre back last night. They had one fit centre back at the weekend. He went off after 13 minutes. So, and there was a lot of hostility towards Gary Caldwell at the end of the game. Obviously, this is a very similar story to what happened to Exeter last year. Started like a house on fire. They're having a middle of the season slump down in 17th place. I'm not sure if they're going to get dragged into a relegation battle, but in the form table in the last 8, they've picked up 5 points, which is the same as Crawley, and only 1 more than Cambridge. So they're really out of form. The only positive I can say for Exeter last night was Ali. Quick, dynamic, got a really good goal. He is the one positive out of Exeter City at the moment. They've also got Ben Purrington, who is contracted to the club. And this is a rumour I saw from a couple of Exeter fans. He has a clause in his contract that will extend if he plays one more game. But he's a centre-back and they're not playing him because they don't want to extend his contract. So that's rather worrying.
Yeah.
So Exeter obviously lost Kramer, who's arguably a top 6 centre-back in League One. He's gone back to Brentford. But for Orient, we spoke about it before. They're unbeaten in, I think, in 12 league games. Most informed team in the last 10 League One games. The 21st of December, they were on the 1st of December, they're in the bottom 4. As we sit on the 29th of January, they're 6th. They actually scored 6 goals yesterday as well, which is not something we've seen from an Orient side for obviously a very long time. The big concern is more injuries. 9 first-team players are now injured. Beckles looks like he tore his hamstring last night, to be honest. So that could be his season done. Been a key player for us this year. Sean Clare took a knock on the same knee that he had previously just come back from. So if you're looking at players, you've got Sean Clare, you've got John Ball, Jack Simpson, Omar Beckles, Theo Archibald, Jordan Graham, Dan Adjie, and Ollie O'Neill, all out injured, who would all start, and I've probably missed one out as well. So you've got 8 first-team players there who would all be in the matchday squad, all injured. But the positives is Dylan Markande scoring 2 and 2, and Azim Abdullahi getting a hat-trick and an assist last night.
I was just looking at the game momentum, which I know doesn't tell the full story of the stats, but other than towards the very end of the match, like in the final sort of 10, 15 minutes, it looked like Exeter had the majority of the momentum. You just scored at key moments in the game. You completely nullified them straight away. It's kind of points to what you say about Orient. They're a very positioned team. They're a very, I don't want to say a moments team, but they're what all managers, and this seems to be the buzzword of League One this year, they're a very moments team. They're a very clinical team, and obviously that's quite an important thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is down to our out of possession work. We've gone from being a very possession-heavy side to a side that doesn't need the ball to win and control matches. I firmly believe, other than probably Birmingham and maybe Wrexham, I would probably class Stevenage in there, but they just literally sit on their 6-yard box and it's impossible to score against them. I think we're one of the best out of possession and coached teams in the league. And the difference now is we've got forward players that are shooting from range, and we've got a player in Jamie Donnelly who could very, very, very easily be in Spurs' first team next year now.
Yeah. Well,
that's just the difference.
Especially if Spurs end up in the Championship, which is not, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. I should mention a couple of the teams down in the proper mid-table. Lincoln to Stevenage, 11th to 15th, separated by just 1 point, 38, and 4 teams on 37 points. Obviously not a great night for Lincoln. Losing 2-0 against Blackpool, it means those two are now both in that pack. In terms of this game, I won't spend much on it because there's not a huge amount to talk about. Lincoln just failed to make the most of any of their opportunities, and Blackpool were clinical in theirs. It's the same sort of story we've heard from Lincoln for the past, I don't know, 2 months, really, 2-3 months. They're not, and it might be that they're just making the most of the new striker and stuff like that. But I don't know. It's just obviously Ben House going off injured. Sounds like that's just a dead leg. But again, doesn't help if your strikers are going off injured in the first half when you're meant to press from the front and things like that. Rotherham were also one of those teams that 2-1 win against Cambridge. Again, it feels like that game kind of played out sort of how you'd expect it in terms of that game. Obviously, go behind to a Ryan Loft goal, which I know I listened to another podcast I quite enjoy. I'm sure a lot of our listeners also listen to the Guardian Football Weekly. Ryan Loft, a bit of a cult hero on that podcast, so for whatever reason. But yeah, Rotherham 2-1 winners there. Again, doesn't really feel like much to talk about in that game. It feels like that game plays out how you expect it to on the script. One game that doesn't play how you expect it to on the script in Hollywood, that is Stevenage beating Wrexham, which I mean, I was quite shocked with this one. Didn't they go 2-0 up within 18 minutes?
Yeah,
very impressive.
Considering Stevenage had scored 4 away goals before yesterday, and they've gone and scored 3 in one game against a team who hadn't lost at home, rather impressive.
Sometimes it just doesn't go how you expect it to at all.
No.
Charlton 2-0 win against Bristol Rovers. Again, we've kind of said about Bristol Rovers, a bit worrying for them. 3 defeats in 5, but 2 wins in that one. It's that mid-pack inconsistency that if it creeps in and you get the bad rub of the green, you could end up, if Burton and maybe Crawley or Shrewsbury do pull something together, you'd imagine Bristol Rovers, Northampton Town, we mentioned Peterborough and Exeter, they're the ones that'll get pulled into it potentially.
I think Charlton are a bit of an outside shot for the playoff places there as well. They've gone so quietly about their business of Charlton that we all spoke about them. What was it, about 6 weeks ago when they were like 16th, and it's like, it's gonna be one of them seasons again for Charlton. But they've slowly crept up the table, 3 wins in a row, and also 2 clean sheets in a row as well. Or 3 clean sheets in 5.
I think it helps that their results have been fairly unremarkable. I mean, a 2-1 win against Bolton. That again, I think that's because I don't know if was Ian Evatt still at the club at that point. I can't remember.
I believe that was his final game.
Yeah. So, and then a 1-0 win against Shrewsbury, and then obviously 2-0 against Bristol Rovers. The games that you kind of expect them to, but they're not like. It's the fact that they're not demolishing that kind of helps them go under the radar. And the final game, Stockport against Shrewsbury, 1-0. Shrewsbury, I don't want to say they need something remarkable to help get out of the drop zone, but if it's something remarkable, they've already got it in Gareth Ainsworth. It's just whether that's enough. Stockport kind of stabilised again. It's just we've mentioned it with Stockport inconsistency. They've won 3 in a row. They'll probably go winless in 3 now. Who knows?
Yes, please. We've got this weekend.
Well, that's the thing with Stockport, isn't it? Just the final game of last night. Okay, it's a good 1-0 win, and that's all you need. 3 points is 3 points, but it's just that it's all right. We look at one game at a time, and this is why I kind of look at it when I look at games, I look at the table, because it's all about, it's not just one game in football. I know our managers love to say we're taking it one game at a time, but it's never just one game at a time, is it? It's all about chapters of the season, and they're just not. I just don't think they're with it at the moment.
No, I would agree. I totally agree with that.
Beautiful stuff. Let's move on then to looking ahead to this weekend's fixtures. Obviously, with us looking back at last night's, it won't be probably as in depth as we normally do it, but we'll get through a lot of them. I don't want to say a lot of nothing games this weekend, but a lot of games that kind of you'd expect to go one way or the other. A lot of the top teams playing a lot of bottom teams, if that makes sense. We'll start with Stevenage against Exeter. We've talked about Exeter's poor form. We talked about Stevenage kind of back-to-back wins for them. I feel like this game, I don't know, will it be a return to character for Stevenage?
It's probably the type of game Stevenage don't want, because they're 2 teams that are going to, Exeter have no defenders, so they're going to try and sit back and try and absorb pressure and probably hit them on the break with their pace on the break. But Stevenage don't want the ball. Their best work is done, make it suffocating the opposition and then hitting them on the break with a long ball and picking up a second ball. I think this is the type of game Stevenage would expect to win, especially at the moment. Their home form is slap bang in mid-table, 14 games at home, 23 points, which is exactly where Stevenage are in the table, to be honest, mid-table. Exeter's away form is 13 played and 14 points. Again, that's lower mid-table sort of form. I would back a Stevenage win. It'll probably be a clean sheet. The thing is with Exeter, when you watch a team and you come away thinking that game could have been 7-4, but then they play Stevenage, it's like, well, they're not going to be able to use their pace in behind because that's not possible. And that's the key attributes of that Exeter side. They use Ali's pace and try and get the balls into McGuinness. I will back Stevenage to win, and I will go 2-0.
Yeah, I think we're thinking along similar lines. It's just like no matter what Exeter do, Stevenage are a side that, okay, every team plays on confidence, but Stevenage play more on tactics than feelings, I suppose. A lot of teams talk about confidence and stuff, but I feel like Stevenage just know how to defend. So regardless of how good or how bad their form is, they'll play exactly the same way all the time. So that's why I've gone with a 1-0 home win to Stevenage. Barnsley against Burton. This game, okay, look at it. It's 9th against 21st. So you kind of probably back Barnsley, who have been in the playoffs for most of this season or in and around them. They still are. But, Barnsley without a win in 3, Burton have won 3 in a row. The table's kind of reversed in this one, Sam.
Yeah, see, I'm going to describe Barnsley in a very weird term here. Barnsley are like the team that somebody who drives in a 30 in a 60. That's what Barnsley are like. They're extremely annoying to predict. Sometimes they're really good and you get behind someone who's doing 60 in a 60 on the country lanes and yet no held up. Then there's times when they're losing, it's mainly at home, when they're doing about 20 in the 60 and you just literally want to hit them to get them out of the way.
Yeah. I feel like that's a very specific anecdote, Sam. Are you okay?
No. So I think Burton will beat them because Burton are on form. They're playing on confidence. Barnsley's home form is pretty poor for a team in their position with 17 points from 14 at home. Burton's away form is just with 12 points from 13, which is actually lower mid-table in terms of away form. If you're going off the form guide in the last 8, Barnsley sit with 12 points from 8 games, but Burton also sit on 12 points from 8 games. So I am going to back Barnsley. Not Barnsley, Burton, sorry. And I will go... I'm going to go 2-1 Burton.
I was literally about to say the same thing. I'll go... Do you know what? Bodvarsson, I'll back you. Get me a double, please. I'll go 3-1 Burton. I'll go 3-1 Burton Albion, and we're going to look like rightfuls when Barnsley get the 3 points. Yes. Cambridge against Wycombe. It's second top against second bottom. Wycombe, again, I don't want to say they're in indifferent form, but 2 draws, 2 wins, and 1 defeat in the last 5. But the teams below them are doing worse, so that's only a positive thing for them. Cambridge... It's weird with Cambridge, isn't it, that we're talking about Shrewsbury Town with a better chance of staying up, even though Cambridge are ahead of them in the table. Cambridge, we just feel like we've already resigned them to a League 2 place next year.
Yeah, I really like that. What I will say about Cambridge, I really like the signing of Don Ballard on loan, a striker that I think is a proper poacher and a fox in the box, which is probably what Cambridge actually need. Their home form is 6th worst with 15 points from 13. Wycombe's away form is the joint best in the league with Birmingham. If we're going to go off what we normally do, we'd probably easily say a Wycombe win. I will say a Wycombe win, but I don't think it's going to be convincing. Okay. I'm going to end up with a load of 2-1s here. I'm going to go 3-1 to Wycombe, but I think it'll be 2-1 for a very long time. And as Cambridge push forward, Wycombe will get the.
There's Kone in the 95th minute again.
The league's top scorer has Kone as well. He's finally overtaken Louis Barry.
Louis Barry's not been in the league for a month, but there we go.
Yeah.
We'll move on to Birmingham against Rotherham. This game quite interesting, I think, because it's whether Steve Evans' Rotherham can just dull what will I don't want to say is a free flowing Birmingham City, but just the outright quality of of Birmingham City, and I
Mm.
just don't think, as much as we hail Steve Evans' tactics, I just don't think you can't play that way against a Birmingham side with that much quality. Maybe in the cups, but definitely not in the league. I just don't think so.
Yeah, I would agree. Not Huddersfield, Rotherham are 6th in the form table, 14 points from 8. Birmingham are 3rd with 18 points from 8. We know how good Birmingham have been defensively as
Yeah.
well. We talk about all their firepower going forward, but they've only conceded 18 league goals, which is maths 5 less than the next team. So we should probably put some respect on the Birmingham defence as well. We all talk about their firepower. So for Rotherham, again, they're like the Barnsley anagram that I used. You're just waiting for them to get going. They get going and then they stall. Sitting in 14th place, I'll back Birmingham, and I will go 2-0, especially at home.
To be fair, the only blip on Rotherham United's record recently is that defeat to Burton Albion, which I guess you can kind of chop up to a bit of an enigma, a bit of a weird result. But I'll go 3-0 Birmingham. I just think that the quality's too good. To what I think is a much bigger game for one side than the other, Blackpool against Charlton. I think this is a huge game for Blackpool. We talked so much about them doing all right and getting going, and then they've had, they look great at the start of the year, and then shocking, and then great, and just whatever the tail of their season is. It feels like now they can, 3 points takes them to within, we're dependent on results elsewhere, can really push them up that table and up towards those playoffs, which is where you kind of expect Blackpool to be. Yeah. I think if they win that game, they get a lot more confidence. They've won their last 2. They're doing all right.
Yes, the 2 of the most form teams, I would say, in the last 5 in terms of unbeaten records. Charlton obviously winning their last 3, as we've discussed, and as you said, Blackpool won their last 2 and are unbeaten in 5 with 3 draws. Steve Bruce has made them a lot more difficult to beat. Now, they don't lose as many, but they do draw a lot, which is, when you're in mid-table, is probably good for a side like that, building for next year. Tom Bloxham, obviously that special goal at the weekend. Ashley Fletcher scored last night as well. Not something we say very often. He's got his 5th goal of the season. But they've got Hamilton and Apter as their 2 wide men as well, 2 really good players for League One level. So I think Blackpool have got quality going forward. I just think suspects defensively. Charlton are extremely strong defensively, just 26 goals scored. And they don't really ever lose or win by more than 1 goal. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw here.
I think we're thinking along similar lines here. Again, we're getting quite good at this. I've gone 2-2. I think a score draw because I think both teams need something from this game to keep that momentum going. On to another game, Reading against Bolton. Reading a side that I don't want to say are in free fall. We've predicted it for a while, and then they kept on defying the odds. But it feels like now, without a win in 4, lost the last 3. It does. I don't want to say it feels like the inevitable is happening with Reading, but it does feel like they've put all the coal on the fire now, and they're just waiting for it to power. To use a steam train analogy, to power the train to the end of the platform, and they're just kind of hoping it gets there until they run out of speed. And I feel like we're at the point where they're just coasting towards the end of the season. Don't get me wrong; they could prove me wrong or win, and they could. Yeah. I mean, it's very unlikely if they win, they'll end back up in the playoffs. It'd take an almighty goal difference swing, but 2 results, and we could be talking about them in 6th again.
They've got a pretty important run in their next 5. So they've got Bolton at home, obviously, as we're discussing. They've got Huddersfield away, Shrewsbury at home, Rotherham at home, Birmingham at home. So 4 home games in their next 5, and we know how good Reading's home record is. My big concern when they play Bolton is Bolton are extremely strong through the middle of the pitch. Reading's weakness is the ball going through the midfield and through the defence, like through the middle of the pitch. Reading are woefully bad. 3rd highest XG conceded in the league as well for Reading. Now, there's rumours that Sam Smith is obviously going to Wrexham. There was a rumour about Harvey Nibbs, and there was a rumour about Garcia, who's played down their left-hand side, going to Southampton. I think it was Southampton. And there was also rumours of Craig going to Stevenage, which that bid was rejected. So there's rumours around a whole host of their players, which we did expect. So they are in free fall, but they do have that individual quality. But as I said, Bolton are extremely strong through the middle of the pitch. I can't remember the person's name. I think it's Derby at Bolton. He's got a lot of love with the fans as well. He's supported their whole life. I saw a clip when they were walking around the pitch after, I think it was the Huddersfield game, and he had his little kid with him, and all the, which was really, really nice. So I'm going Bolton 3-0.
Yeah, I think it's just one of them, Bolton. I think it'd be a professional performance, but I do think they need to get a manager in soon, else they'll start. That good form will go eventually. Crawley against Wrexham. Wrexham third without a win in 3 though. Crawley, I'd say their form not much better other than their win last night. Obviously, it's a game that I think would Wrexham pick this opponent to help them get back on form. It's kind of like you have sometimes the perfect game does come. Is this that game?
The problem Wrexham have is their away form is terrible. They've got 13 points from 12 away games. So Wrexham would probably rather it be a home game to try and bounce back. Crawley's home form, though, is the second worst in the league. 12 points from 11 games. Only worsened by Burton, who had 12 points from 15 home games. Crawley will obviously have some confidence after a win. Wrexham are a bit out of form. I just can't see a scenario where Wrexham lose, though. Now I've said that, somebody's going to clip this, and when Crawley beat them,
we'll get a post scheduled for Sunday morning.
But I'm going to go Wrexham 2-0.
Yeah, I think it's one of them. Wrexham, again, like we talk about moments in every season. I feel like this is one of them for Wrexham. They need to be able to grind out a result like this if they want to challenge that top 2. We'll move on to Huddersfield against Northampton. Sam, I can see on my sheet you're quite confident with this prediction. You've already put it in. What's your thoughts ahead of this game?
Well, while Huddersfield are out of form, Northampton are also out of form. So this is 2 teams in dire straits of a win for 2 different reasons. Northampton is statistically the worst team in the division. Huddersfield, I think, were 3rd in my expected points table, which I don't have on the screen in front of me. I was looking at it earlier. I believe they're 3rd. There is no way that they're going to be able to keep Callum Marshall, Dion Charles, and Joe Taylor quiet for 90 minutes. No. I just can't see a way in which Huddersfield go to Northampton and don't pick up at least a point. I've got Huddersfield to win 4-1. I think it's Michael Duff will challenge. Like, Michael Duff's a very good League One manager, as we know. I just think this is now a challenge to his Huddersfield side to get them out of this form again and start showing. Yeah. They can't let the top 2 get away, let's put it that way. And they need to start showing a bit more consistency to get into that top 2.
I mean, we know they've got a game in hand, but even with that game in hand, they're still, they're 10 points off, so they'd still be 7 points away from Wycombe. And I mean, I can see Wycombe dropping 7 points this season, but whether Huddersfield Town can capitalise on all of them and make sure they make up that amount of points, that's the difficulty for me for Huddersfield. I feel like obviously you don't want that gap to get any bigger, but I don't know if the gap is already too big. Moving on, 4 games left. It'll start off with Shrewsbury against... Is it Shrewsbury? I feel like I always say Shrewsbury, and then there'll always be someone who says it's Shrewsbury. Well, we've got both bases covered between us. Shrewsbury against Mansfield. Mansfield Town, I don't want to say again capitulating, because I often get abused with my my thoughts on Mansfield Town, but it does feel like that defeat to Wycombe, which again is an understandable result, but then they've lost to 2 sides in relegation places in Cambridge and Crawley. I'm confused by Mansfield. They're just we were always talking about them potentially going into the playoffs, but they just feel like they're just doomed for mid. I say doomed for mid-table. It's very tight in that mid-pack, and mid-table is respectable when you come back into the league, into League One. But
yeah,
Mansfield, I'm just a bit. They just need something, don't they?
Yeah, I think injuries have just caught up with them at the wrong time of the season. Yeah. Their squad's not the biggest, so that's probably why they've not won. They've lost their last 3. And what the possible opponent they probably didn't want to play at this moment in time is that it's going to sound so weird. Is Shrewsbury, because if you look at Shrewsbury's recent results, they obviously lost 1-0 to Stockport for a bit of magic from a midfielder who's played in the Premier League as of last year. You lose 1-0 to Charlton in the final kick of a game. So arguably, you've not conceded from open play against Stockport, who are brilliant going forward. You've lost in the last minute against a team fighting at the top of the league. You've beaten one of the best teams in the league in Wrexham. You lose 1-0 to Orient, who are the most informed team in League One, and you drew 1-1 away at Blackpool. They're not getting demolished. They're always in the games, and it's these fine little margins that are hurting Shrewsbury.
Yeah.
So, they're probably the team Mansfield don't want to play.
It's just frustrating for them, isn't it? Because you'd think, okay, lose to Wycombe, the games you'd want to rebuild that confidence are against bottom half sides for Mansfield, aren't they? So, Shrewsbury, they do have that. They just have that factor, don't they? Of Ainsley. I've gone 2-0 Shrewsbury in this one, or Shrewsbury.
Yeah. And I've gone for a 1-1 draw. So if you look at Mansfield's next 5, they've got Shrewsbury away, Northampton at home, Orient away, Blackpool away, and Lincoln at home. So the teams that are around them in the table. So depending what their season ambitions are, we will know a lot more by the middle of February whereabouts Mansfield are going to be.
So 1-1 you've gone and 2-0 I've gone. Final 3 games then. Wigan against Lincoln. I hate saying this because it's my own team, but it just feels like a mid-table battle. I struggle to see a reality after last night anyway, of how Lincoln get anywhere near the playoffs. It just all depends on whether Lincoln can actually shoot, because they've not been able to do that in recent days, at all this season, if we're honest. And I just worry because whenever Lincoln play Wigan, it always just seems to be a really boring game. But I back Lincoln to win it 1-0. Just I think that's a bit of fan bias, to be honest. But
I've also got you to win. I've got you to win 2-1.
Yeah, this game. I mean, I know we always look at football as with our teams at the centre of it, but to me, this game just depends on whether Lincoln turn up. Yeah. That's literally all I can say about this one. They have the quality. It's just whether they can. I don't want to say can be bothered to do it, but whether they actually show it. Orient against Stockport, 5th against 6th. This is probably, I'd say, the game that, if I'm looking exclusively at where teams are in the table, the game that I'd keep my eye on, to be honest. It's a chance for one of them to really get, if Stockport win, a chance for them to get into the, to maybe get up to 4th. And if Leyton Orient lose, then, they could be swallowed up and down to 9th by the end of the night. So
Stockport sitting 4th in the form table, 14 points from 8 games. Orient top in the last 8, 22 points from 8. So 7 wins and a draw. I just think the injury situation is going to catch up with Orient at some point soon. Lot of games. Yeah. They've obviously got they're going to have Manchester City next week as well. So it is a chance for some fringe players potentially to show why they should be starting against Manchester City. So it can work 2 ways. If I'm being honest, I'd take a point, and I've gone for a point. I've gone for a 2-2 draw. Stockport, as I've said many times, are statistically the best team in the division in terms of expected points. So I've gone for a 2-2 draw. And I just pray that if we got 7 points from the 3 games with no more injuries, I'd be okay. No more injuries, please.
I think I've gone 1-1, similar lines. I just can't see either of you. I don't want to say can't see either of you losing, but you're both in decent form. So Stockport and Orient. And finally, the final game, Bristol Rovers against Peterborough United. Peterborough, it kind of feels, it's one win in it, but you just wonder whether that humiliation, and that's what it was against Lincoln, and I will mug this for all it was because we haven't beaten them other than last week since New Year's Day. So that humiliation against Lincoln, you just wonder whether that's kind of woken them up, I guess. I've gone with 3-1 to Peterborough. Bristol concede too many and don't score enough for my liking, and in a game like that, there's only one side that comes out better, and that's Peterborough United.
Yeah, you got 2 of the most out of form teams in the last 8 in this one.
Yeah.
But 2 teams who have lots of quality going forward. I know Bristol Rovers have only scored 25 in 27, but on paper, it just looks like they've got quality. And at some point,
Yeah.
this is going to click, I believe anyway. Posh, we know how good they are going forward, 44 goals, but I know they've kept 2 clean sheets in their last 4. They're still extremely vulnerable defensively. So I've gone for a 3-3 draw. I've gone a bit rogue for the final one.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, as you can see, scrolling up across the bottom of the screen, if you're watching on YouTube, there is a deadline day live stream on our YouTube page. That's at 8 p.m. We'll be covering not just League One and League Two, but also I'm sure all the transfers happening around the world and in the UK as well, in England. Weirdly, the January transfer window ending on Monday, the 3rd of February. Who gets it? It's just really weird. But yeah, make sure you subscribe with notifications on. Obviously, follow the podcast, and obviously make sure you've got notifications on wherever you listen to the podcast, so you don't miss an episode or indeed a live stream. But for now, that's it from this preview episode of the League One Lowdown.